Thank you, Senator Durbin. Appreciate the violence that this country has seen over the past years has been appalling. We all saw an unprecedented spike of murders along with periods of prolonged civil unrest. Americans killed one another, destroyed their neighbors' businesses, attacked law enforcement officers, and burned city blocks to the ground. Just yesterday, as we saw on the news last night, police officer made the ultimate sacrifice. His life during an attack on a supermarket in Boulder, Colorado, that killed 10. Obviously, as Senator Durbin said, our condolences go to the families of those lost in this terrible crime. The same goes to the murder victims senselessly killed in Atlanta last week. However, I've taken a few lessons from these terrible events. The first is that we can't reduce violence in our communities without a professional, well-trained, and fully funded police force. This includes gun violence. The rallying cry during the riots last summer was defund the police. Cities that followed that advice saw a rapid spike in violent crime. Many were forced to refund the police. This happened in Minneapolis and Portland, maybe other cities as well. Statistics show that the murder rate in 2020 increased most significantly in June when the rioters were on the march and policymakers forced police into retreat. Evidence strongly suggests that June 2020 spike in homicides and other gun-related crimes is related to less policing or depolicing. This progressive goal may have translated to 1,268 additional deaths in 2020. On the other hand, efforts to combat violent crime like Bill Barr's Operation Legend resulted in an additional 6,000 arrests nationwide, including nearly 500 for homicide and hundreds of illegal firearms seized. Sadly, it does not appear that the Department of Justice now intends to continue this successful initiative. I hope that violent crime will be a top priority for our Attorney General Garland and for President Biden. But I've already heard about cuts in funding for the U.S. Attorney's Office. In the Senate, we have previously acted in a bipartisan way to add legal measures to curb gun violence. We passed the Fix NICS Act and the Stop School Violence Act just a few short years ago. Together, these laws penalize federal agencies who fail to comply with the current law requiring them to properly report dangerous individuals and violent criminals to NICS. They also provide incentives to the states to improve their overall criminal history reporting and also provide funding to schools to strengthen their infrastructure, which will make it harder for shooters to enter schools. I believe that there's more that we can do. I've led the reintroduction of the EAGLES Act, a bill which would reauthorize the National Threat Assessment Center of the U.S. Secret Service so that they can train law enforcement officers and schools about recognizing the signs of a person in crisis. Early intervention is the best way to stop tragic mass shootings. For example, the shooter of the Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School in Florida, and that's the home of the Eagles, exhibited 42 different warning signs before killing his former classmates. A comprehensive review by the Secret Service found that all school shooters exhibit such signs before attack. Recognizing the signs and addressing them with crisis intervention could prevent future school attacks. So I ask my fellow members of this committee to consider joining me in co-sponsoring this bill and seeing it to reality. With my colleagues, Senator Coons and Cornyn, I'm also a co-sponsor of the NICS Denial Act, this bill would require state and local law enforcement to be alerted when someone tries to buy a gun who's doesn't qualify under the law. Law enforcement can then intervene. With my colleague, Senator Cruz, I plan to reintroduce the Protecting Communities and Preserve the Second Amendment Act, which improves the NICS system of incentivizing and encouraging that, ensuring that relevant records are uploaded to the database in a timely and consistent manner. This legislation also defines and clarifies what it means to be prohibited from possession of a firearm due to mental incompetence or commission to a mental health institution, and commissions a study on the causes of mass shooting. Finally, the bill includes a provision that requires that law enforcement be notified if an individual has been investigated as to a possible terrorist threat or attempts to acquire firearms. I think that we can make bipartisan common sense and constitutional progress on the issue of gun violence if we work together. And I hope that we're serious about working together. The two background check bills recently passed by the House passed on votes that were virtually party line. There is no good sign. That is not a good sign that all voices and all perspectives are being considered. Like many Americans, I cherish my right to bear arms. In the dialogue about gun control, we rarely consider how many Americans are united in their advocacy and enjoyment of this right. I'm pleased to see women gun owners and gun owners of color make their voices heard. In a time when law enforcement response might be uncertain, the need for vulnerable populations to feel safe and be able to protect themselves is more important than ever. The witnesses appearing for the minority bring those perspectives into this dialogue and do it this very day. I hope those who don't know this will learn something new about the diversity of gun owners. I hope that we can have a constructive conversation today, one that focuses on the preservation of the Second Amendment right that we all share and the safety of all Americans. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thanks,